Ian from RTO here. Welcome to another Battle of the Debuts, where we look at two bands, similar sort of ilk, and look at their first albums. Now this one's a little bit different, and it's going to start with a little story. Once upon a time, there was a band that was formed in 1968, and this band was Deep Purple. And they had a certain Ritchie Blackmore in at the start, and they had a little bit of success, and then they decided they wanted to go in another direction, and they got rid of their bass player and their singer and brought in a new singer and bass player called Ian Gillan and Roger Glover. Now this band went on and had a great success, but then all of a sudden the clash of the ego started between Ian Gillan and Ritchie Blackmore, and in 1973 Ian Gillan left. But by 1975, 74-75, even Ritchie Blackmore had had enough. He didn't like the direction that they were going in. So what he did, he was on tour with a band called Elf at the time. So he went and had a word with their lead singer, Ronnie James Dio, and they went and did some recording on the QC. And in 1975, we had Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, that basically is Elf without their guitar player. I bet he felt really peed off. So today it's all about Rainbow and Ian Gillan's band. So we are going to start with Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. The album was released in 1975. So you've got Ronnie James Dio from Elf, Ritchie Blackmore obviously from Deep Purple, Mickey LaSalle piano mellotron from Elf, Craig Gruber from Elf on the bass, and Gary Driscoll on the drums. The album was produced by Ronnie and Ritchie. First track on here is the classic Man on the Silver Mountain. Just love that opening riff from Ritchie. He's on fire, and Dio sounds great on that. It's really good. Then we get Self-Portrait. It's got certainly a medieval Dungeons and Dragons sort of thing. It's a really, really good track. Then we get a cover called Black Sheep and the Family. It's a Quartermass song. It's alright, but it's not one of my favourite songs on the album, to be quite honest. I've never really got into that track. Then we have a track that I do love, and that is, of course, Catch the Rainbow. It's a great vocal from Ronnie, and Ritchie Blackmore's guitar work on this is fantastic. It's a fantastic song. Then we get Snake Charmer. Really good, solid rock track. You know what you're going to get. It's great guitar work from Ritchie, fine vocal from Mr. Dio. And then we get another brilliant track, The Temple of the King. I just love this track. I love the gentleness of it. But the guitar work is something good, and some of the Ritchie's guitar work is. You would hear this again when he formed Blackmore's Night, this sort of style, and a great vocal from Ronnie as ever. If you don't like rock and roll, this more sounds like an Elf song than really. It's a good song, but it really doesn't fit on this album for me. Then we get a classic 16th century Greensleeves. Love this song. Great riffs from Ritchie, and also I think it's on this album, I think it's Ronnie James Dio's best vocal. And then we get a an instrumental version of the Yardbird Still I'm Sad. It's a good cover, but I wouldn't want it on this album really. I mean, I like how they do it, but I'm sure they could have come up with another song, to be quite honest. It's a classic album. I love this album. It's okay. It's got two covers on it, and a couple of weaker tracks. But on the whole, it is a brilliant album. And I do like to play this one. But it's not what I think. What do the critics think? Well, the album was praised for its fantasy, heroic, lyrical content, which we'd expect from Ronnie James Dio. However, the reviewer from American Rolling Stone, here they go, described Blackmore's playing as listless and bored in relation of past performances. How can someone call Ritchie Blackmore as listless and boring? Moron. But I don't get that. But modern reviews have a similar tenure. All music reviewer wrote that the album had a few listenable tracks, with young Dio at his best. There's some fast tracks like 16th Century Greensleeves and A Man on the Silver Mountain. Great, but he remarked that the band became a true embarrassment. Then tried to lighten up with Boogie Down. But Mr. Martin Popoff noticed on this album that he confirms the creative vacuum that was much so in Edwards towards the last years with Purple, offering a quick guitar rock styles, impressively played. So didn't go down too well. All Music gave it a 2 and a bit stars. Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal gave it a 6 out of 10, and the Encyclopedia of Popular Music gave it a 3 stars. The UK album charts, he got to number 7. Got to number 17, but managed to make the top 20 at Billboard at number 30, and it went silver over here in the UK. Song quality on this one, so let's look at these nuts and bolts. Song quality. I think the song quality is good. Some great writing from Ronnie. Let down by the covers though, so it's not going to get a full marks, but I'll give it song quality 4 out of 5 because the songs, even though some of the compositions are a little bit iffy, the words are really good. Production, the difference you got this between this and the next album is poles apart. So unfortunately on the production I can only give it a 3 out of 5. Reception, slated by the critics, but you know, both top 20 albums, both in America and UK. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 for reception. Cover design. I like the cover. It's bright. Not a rainbow on it, but as such. But you've got the castle and the medieval. It's a pretty cool cover. So I'm going to give cover a 4 out of 5. So for total for Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow is 15 out of 20. So let's move on. So after Mr. Gillan had left Deep Purple, Ian Gillan decided that he was going to retire from the music business, and the business ventures included motorcycles, engine, and a country hotel restaurant with a guitar-shaped swimming pool, and an ownership of a Kingsway recording studio. But all these ventures, apart from the recording studio, ended up in failure. This fact combined with a warm reception to a guest appearance at Roger Glover's Butterfly Ball. And he thought, I better do some singing. Then he went in to replace Ronnie James Dio, because Ritchie Blackmore banned Ronnie James Dio for taking part. Oh dear, he didn't like the idea that Ronnie was going to go and sing Sitting on a Dream at this Butterfly Ball because it was organised by an ex-Deep Purple member. The fickle world of Ritchie Blackmore, right? So he must have enjoyed it because it prompted him to put a band together. And in 1976, the Ian Gillan Band released Child in Time, which was their debut album. It's a British rock jazz band, this is. And it was produced by Mr. Roger Glover. And on here we have got Ian Gillan, of course, on vocals and harmonica. Mike Moran on keyboards. Ray Fenwick on guitars, the brilliant John Gustafson on the bass and vocals, Mark Nusef on drums. Roger Glover pops up and does some synthesizer and kalimba and vocals. So the first track on this one is called Lay Me Down. I love this track. Great drumming here from Mark Nusef. There's some great little riffs on here as well. And of course Mr. Gillan's dulcet tones. You Make Me Feel So Good. Great little track. This sound and this screechy sound would always appear right up until poor old Ian's voice couldn't do it anymore. It's just great. I love the bass line in this from John Gustafson. Terrific track. Then we get a track called Shame. Now this is really the more funky jazz side of things. Some nice keyboards in this, not a bad track. My Baby Loves Me. The percussion on this is outstanding. Again, it's got a real great vocal for me, and love the track. Then we get this slow track called Down the Road. Very pleasant, nice piano work on this, pretty good. Then we get a cover, and it's alright, it's a cover, he can do it because he co-wrote it. It's Child in Time. It's nothing like the Deep Purple version. This is more of a stripped down, slowed down vocal, and Gillan's voice is great, but a lot of people didn't get into this. I quite like it. Then we have a track called Let It Slide. I think this is more progressive than jazz. It's got some really nice textures on this track. The keyboards sound great. Mr. Fenwick's guitar is pretty good on this. It's my favourite track on the album. Now I think this is a solid debut album. It's got that mixture of jazz and rock, and sort of stripped down a little bit and jazzy style. Really, really good. Now there's not been much written about this at all. Really struggled to find something. All Music though give it 4 stars. UK chart entry at 55, and he got to number 36 in Sweden. Let's look at the nuts and bolts of this. Song quality. I think the songs are pretty good. Although, you know, Gillan didn't, he wrote, I think he co-wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. He co-wrote all of them. Mike Moran's involved. All the band are involved. So, apart from Child in Time, of course. So I am going to give it it was an all-round performance. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Production. Great production. Roger Glover is a fine producer, which we'll find out when we are doing that when we start our new series in December of producers, and we are going to feature Roger Glover because he has produced some really interesting albums over his time, and I think he's a really good producer. So for production, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Reception. Bit mixed, really, wasn't it? I mean, it didn't really hit a note here in the UK. The Swedish loved it, and All Music gave it 4 stars. So I'm going to go middle of the road here, and I'm going to say for reception, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. Cover design. I love this cover. I love the Child in Time. I like the you know, in the prism, Stuck in Time. I think it's a really good cover, and it's one of the sort of art I like. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because I think it's a tremendous cover. So for Child in Time by Ian Gillan Band gives us a total of 16. So it pipped Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Okay, the scores say that Ian Gillan won, but as a personal view, I love both albums. You just can't get a tram ticket between them, as I used to say. It's I like them equally brilliant in their own way. Rainbow, you've got a great singer, a great lyricist, and a great guitarist. On the other hand, in the Ian Gillan Band, you've got a brilliant a brilliant singer, and a fantastic bass player in John Gustafsson. But it doesn't take it away from Ray Fennick and the rest of the guys. Totally different sorts of albums. You've got a rock album and a jazz rock album, but the playing on both albums is terrific. I can't decide, so I'm going to let you guys squabble in this one, and you can decide which album is the better. Because I'm going to sit on the fence of this one, because I can't, because I love both these guys. One of my favourite rock bands, and anything to do with the Deep Purple family I love. So this is going to be a tough one. I've got a rough idea which one you guys are going to go for. But you've disagreed with me quite a few times lately. So we'll see how this one goes. Okay, that's all for this episode of Battle of the Debuts. I'd like to say thank you very much for those of you who do take part. And some of you do actually listen to both albums and then give your views, which is fantastic, and that's what this is all about. I'll be back later though with a album artwork, and after giving Muse a hard time, I think I'm going to give them a bit of praise, and I'm going to look at their artwork. We're going to look at their studio albums, their live albums, and some of their EPs for the album artwork. And then of course tonight, 8 PM, British summertime, we've got the live stream. That'll be changing soon because we put the clouds back in about a couple of weeks' time. I think, I don't know, I'll lose track with it. So we'll be back an hour later, but we'll talk about that later. So bye for now.